Hey, this is CJ. Welcome to Retro Rundown. We're all about the awesome 80s, pop culture, movies, music, and so much more. Tonight, we have the awesome Crystal Smith on the show with us. So stick around. Right after this quick commercial break, we'll start the rundown.
This is Ricky Bittman, host of Ricky Bittman's Jukebox Podcast. I want to thank all my fans for making my podcast one of the top podcasts in the country. From the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my co-host Galen Santopadre's heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. Up, up, and away, hey!
Hey, we're back. This is CJ, and welcome back to the Retro Rundown. Tonight we have a very special guest I want to welcome for the first time on the show as we broadcast from the 18th floor in downtown Boston from the Podcast Penthouse at Restani Studios. The awesome Crystal Smith is here with us tonight. Hey, Crystal, how's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, CJ.
Yeah, well, I had a little bit of a heart attack earlier. I have to confess because, for those listening out there, me and Crystal had a conversation prior to the show, and both of us had storms going at the same time on the East Coast, and I had power knocked out for a little bit. I know Crystal lost her internet, so we're just glad everything got restored so that we could have you on tonight.
We were both freaking out.
We were. So those listening tonight, as I mentioned when we first came on the air, Crystal is the host of her own video podcast right here on YouTube and the audio podcast on Apple and on Spotify, The Game Junky Show. She just wrapped up season 2 and is looking to come back probably and get back on the air with that. Crystal, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really kind of a community show. It's super organic, so early episodes will just spawn from, hey, this is a really cool topic that we're talking about, let's do a show about it. And it's essentially a platform where whoever wants to come on can come on. It's a safe place for people to share their opinions and learn from one another, and it's just kind of a community building show, really.
And that's fantastic because social media can be really toxic, as we both know in the communities, video gaming community especially. And so that's really good. Now, you are an icon in the video gaming realm.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you, CJ.
What have you been playing lately?
Oh, a lot.
There's been a lot of great games.
Yeah, I've been playing The Outer Worlds.
Nice.
I played. God, what else? What have I played recently? Oh, geez. Okay. I'm gonna gush a little bit. My nephew, I've been trying to get him into video games. He's 6 and he's now playing games like on his own by himself, and I'm like super proud. So we've been playing like Paw Patrol and just cutesy little games like that together. Bug Snack, stuff like that.
Well, that's good. You're breaking them in early.
Well, not as early as me, but yeah, I'm trying to get him there. I'm trying to get him there.
My show primarily focus on the 80s because it's often remembered for its explosion of blockbuster films and great TV shows. I mean, back when TV shows actually had an introduction song, and the birth of home video gaming, cable TV, the VCR, Blockbuster. But you are a child of the 90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And things are just not the same anymore. We were talking about that, huh? Things have changed an awful lot, not only in video gaming and on TV, but just in general. You miss those days?
I
do.
A lot. I do a lot. It's different. I don't want to be those people that says everything is better then, because it's different.
Right.
And I appreciate technology. Like, I appreciate some of the advancements and some of the conveniences.
Sure.
But it's just shocking how different the generations are because of the change in technologies and the change of like how we grew up and how we got our information, and it's just kind of wild to see it.
It is. I mean, I embrace technology too, but it's stale for me. I mean, even I tell my kids all the time, everything's instantaneous with them. Rewind TV and, stuff like that. They're amazed when I tell them that I had to actually adjust an antenna on the top of my TV when I was a kid to get all but 3 channels to come in clearly.
It's like it being in the car, right? When you wanted to listen to the radio, you had the analog and you had to find the little tiny.
Right. AM and FM. I don't even think these radios now in the car have AM radio.
Probably not. It was a really different. There's just something. There's like this tangible aspect.
Yeah.
That's being diluted, and that's one of the things that I miss the most. Is like a Friday night in a Blockbuster when new movies release.
Now you're talking.
Touching the covers and reading what it's about and
right.
like picking them out, and there's just something.
Oh, I miss those days.
Oh, yeah. I miss it.
You still have your Blockbuster card? I do.
No, I probably tossed it.
Oh, you're breaking my heart. Oh.
I'm sorry. You know what else I miss?
What?
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack, yes. I mean, how great was that? I mean, for all your electronic needs in one store, batteries, AV plugs. Radio Shack was awesome.
I actually worked at Radio Shack for years.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like 18 years old, like only a handful of months out of high school. Worked for. It was actually a great company to work for. Like they were really good to you, and it was so much fun. Like people would come in and bring these, electronic blueprints, and we would just grab right off the shelf. Oh, you need these capacitors,
right.
And we would I'd pull out the soldering kit, and we'd just hang out and shoot the shit and solder. It's just like there's just something so special about that, and we just don't. Retail space is just like transitioning from brick and mortar to online, and you lose.
Oh yeah,
those interpersonal experiences.
All those great brick and mortar stores are gone. I mean, some of the first 2 jobs that I had in my early teen years were Blockbuster Video and Strawberries Records and Tapes. If you can believe.
I worked at Blockbuster too.
It was the best job ever. And you got free rentals as an employee. It was awesome.
Yeah. I miss record stores. I would go into
right.
the Painted Puppy record store in Tampa.
Okay.
Every Friday after work, and I just take my own headphones, and just for hours I'd listen to records before I bought them.
Yeah, right. We did the same thing. We had Tower Records in Boston, Strawberries Records and Tapes, and you could sample the music at both of those stores when back in the day. And LPs were very alive. I mean, I used to go in there with my Walkman and just peruse because I couldn't afford the CDs that were too expensive back then. They had just first come out, and I would just love to just look at the cassette wall and buy a few of those. And I don't even think kids know what a Walkman is anymore.
Probably not. And
no.
I'm just imagining how bulky they are. Remember how damn big it is? And it was like you couldn't get it in a pocket. And
yeah.
It was like you'd clip it on your denim jacket, and it would be like cockeyed from the weight.
Right. And you break out the pencil to rewind your tape if it got eaten. Oh, absolutely. Oh man, I'm telling you, that was the best of times. I wish I could just rewind time and go back, especially for the movies. And for the music, I mean, I was a product of my environment back then, and when I was first a kid, breaking into my own, I used to frequent the cinema a lot, and my father, who was a retired cop, did a detail down there for extra money, and the guy who ran Showcase Cinemas in Lawrence, a small city north of Boston, used to give him passes by the truckload, and I would give them to all the kids in the neighborhood. He would sign his initials in the corner of the pass, and we would go see all the movies. And I just recently brought my daughter to the movies to see a movie. There was nobody there. I couldn't believe it. Nobody.
Yeah, I think COVID kind of started, or not started, but like it helped advance.
Yep.
Like streaming replacement of like I feel like things like movie theaters really started to struggle around that COVID time when people started relying more on stuff at home, and then they got used to the convenience. Like, oh, this is cool.
Right. No,
I get it.
of course, because like you just said, COVID definitely had an impact on everything. Everything is streaming now. There are no more brick and mortar stores where you can go get great toys or video games. Record stores are all but gone. Movies now, they break in the cinema and they're available for streaming 2 weeks later. Everything is... I'm just hoping society rebounds and kind of curtails its way back to the way things were a few hours ago, So we're gonna change gears here a little bit, and we're gonna talk movies. I understand you're a huge Mel Brooks fan.
Not huge, but I think Mel Brooks is freaking hilarious.
Oh, for sure. What's your favorite Mel Brooks movie?
Favorite Mel Brooks film?
Yeah.
I have to say Spaceballs.
It has to be Spaceballs. Absolutely. I mean, he had tons of great films, but Spaceballs for me was the best.
Robin Hood Men in Tights was him too, yeah?
Yeah, he did that.
Oh, such good, so funny.
Yeah, they don't make movies like that anymore. What's your favorite 90s movie since you're a child of the 90s? The Matrix.
Matrix. It barely made the 90s, but it's technically 90s.
No, it counts. It counts. I mean, if you ask me, I have a list of about 10 movies long from the 80s. I'd have to say, the Indiana Jones films, Ghostbusters, Star Wars. You're a Star Wars fan. Back to the Future.
Star Wars fans. All of those are bangers, CJ.
Yep.
Bangers.
Now, you're a huge Star Wars fan. Are you looking forward to the new series that's coming up? I think it's coming up next week on Disney Plus, Ahsoka.
I'm going to be honest with you. I started to get a burnout. I got Disney Plus and got really excited because I'm like, oh, it's going to be everything Marvel and Star Wars all the time. And now there's so much content. I'm a little, does that make sense? Or I'm a little bit like, okay, this is, so I'm consuming it much slower.
No, absolutely. I mean, I embrace some of the content that's on Disney Plus. I mean, like I said, I'm a child of the 80s. So, I'm spoiled by the works of George Lucas, and anything after the original trilogy for me, I take with a grain of salt. Mandalorian I loved. Andor not so much. It was very dry. I understand a lot of people out there really loved it. They embraced it. They thought it was very cerebral. For me, not enough action. But I'm looking forward to Ahsoka.
I am too. And The Mandalorian is wonderful.
Oh, it's the best. I mean, I think it offered the best content, other than last season, one episode when they had two guest stars, and I won't give them any airtime on who they were. Jack Black, I'm looking at you, but I can forgive that because I just won't watch that one episode on rerun.
Yeah, I don't actually mind I've enjoyed all of the movies. I mean, I've for the most part I've enjoyed the Disney content. Like I don't have major issues with their spin on anything at all. I just enjoy it for what it is.
Right. What was the first video game system you ever owned?
An Atari 2600.
Now you're talking.
I was 1985. I was 4 when I started playing video games. Yeah,
wow.
My uncle had given me, no idea. They didn't know I was going to pick it up and run with it quick.
Right.
Just brought it over, and the adults were playing something, and they were like, and I picked up Joust and ended up at.
Nice.
I've just been playing video games ever since.
You still have your Atari?
No.
No, long gone?
It stopped working, and I just didn't.
Oh, you'll have to replace it.
In hindsight, I should have kept it and tried to fix it.
I'm going to take a moment to invite my producer, TC Restani, into the booth so that we can talk with Crystal some more.
Unbelievable. Thank you for inviting me on the program once again, CJ. Crystal, nice to meet you face-to-face over Discord.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Unbelievable. I was listening up in the producer's booth. You guys were talking about something which is kind of fascinating. You were born in 1981. That would make me 10 years old. And, when I think about pop culture, I think everything in the 1980s, just like CJ. CJ and I are roughly the same age, and that's why we get along so well, because we lived the greatest decade of all time from 1980 to the last second of 1989. But growing up in the 1980s, the 90s was your 80s. So when you look back on it now as an adult, what made the 80s and the 90s different from each other in your point of view?
You mean what differentiated the 80s from the 90s, or
in pop culture ways, coming from a person who was born in the 80s but experienced the 90s, just like CJ and I were born in the 70s and experienced the 80s?
It's a hard question to answer. I know in the 80s, remember a lot of changes in the music scene. Like I remember TV was nothing but like rural music videos on repeat time, and then at some point it changed, and then they had all these hosts and all these shows. So I just feel, I don't know how to articulate the differences, but
see, that's where
it was kind of changing.
MTV was still strong, I thought.
MTV, well, for me, MTV began in 81.
Right.
And then by 87, they started bringing in different things other than the music videos.
Right.
It kind of shied me away from it. It's like, your music television. I don't need to have it about a game show about a guy who has a remote control in his basement or whatever.
Right.
It was a pop culture show. But this is music television. It's
right.
MTV. It's not MTV plus remote controls and all these other crap that they brought in. So once they
Right.
started bringing all that accoutrements in, I shut it off.
That's what I remember, is like that cultural shift of that thing from all music all the time to a wider variety of pop culture entertainment,
Right.
not directly music related. So yeah, I remember that, and I remember like the hairband influence. Everybody had to, oh my God, the hairspray, the Aquanet cans that we went through.
Hey, the 80s had big hair too.
You've never been.
Saying, yeah.
CJ will get this reference. You've never been to Revere, Mass, have you?
Revere.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Okay, I'm gonna explain it to you. In the 1980s, every girl that came from Revere, Massachusetts, looked like Fran Drescher on The Nanny.
Heavy makeup, hoop earrings, and big hair.
So that's why there's an ozone layer.
And they were
missing.
hot.
They were, but there's an ozone layer still missing over the city of Revere.
It's so true. The cans of frickin', and it was always Aquanet brand. I don't know if that shit was on sale at the or what it was, but
Yeah.
I remember one time my mom had her hair like, and it was the fad. It's whatever. Where they're cutting their hair short and getting these little spikes. A wasp impaled itself on her frickin' spike in her hair, like Vlad the Impaler. It stabbed the thoracic cavity of this frickin' bug and killed it.
You know what I remember from the 90s? Z Cavaricci jeans on the girls. Do you remember those?
No,
You don't.
I don't.
Do you remember those, Crystal?
Yeah, I think so. Were they kind of like acid washed, and they were?
They were. They rode kind of high on their
They were kind of
midriff.
high, like the waist came kind of
Right.
up to the belly button.
Yes.
Okay, is that what
Yeah.
Jesse wore on Saved by the Bell?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh God,
Yes.
Saved by the Bell.
I didn't know what they were called.
We all dressed like that. That was like the bright, crazy colors. Where
Great
like you
show.
looked like you look like you rolled out of a Lisa Frank folder. We all dressed like that.
I didn't.
Yes,
I
you did.
I totally did. Do you guys remember Hypercolor in the 90s, the Hypercolor t-shirts?
Yeah, were those like the pastel color neon shirts?
Kind of, but they were they changed color. Like you had
in the sun.
They didn't quite look tie-dye. If it was a colder day and you put your handprint on it and then pulled it away, the handprint on the shirt would change.
I think
Different
I remember.
set of
I
colors.
think I remember that. Wasn't that what happened with Marty McFly Jr.'s hat in Back to the Future 2?
I think so.
I think so.
Okay, so that's probably that was made in 1989, so probably they used the technology of the time to make.
I want that hat. I love that hat.
I can get you one.
That hat and a pair of those high top shoes.
Oh, high tops.
High tops. I miss high tops. High tops were the
High
game.
tops everywhere. Jelly Shoes. There was Jelly Shoes in '90s. Yeah, Jelly Shoes had to be a '90s thing.
Now, what's that? Is those like Crocs?
No, they're these. Oh God, they're hideous, CJ. They're like clear see-through shoes. They're like I don't know what the hell they're made of.
Wow.
But they were.
I don't remember those.
They were awful. That's probably I think it's fortunate if you don't remember them.
Well, you know what, Crystal? We asked, and TC, I'm going to just jump in here for a real quick second and just tell you, we asked some of our Twitter listeners what the top 3 most overplayed songs of the 1980s were. You want to take a stab, Crystal, on what you think they may be?
Overplayed in the 80s?
Overplayed, yeah. Now, the most played song on Amazon as of current was Don't Stop Believing by Journey, but there were 3 top songs of the 80s that were so overplayed.
When you say overplayed, do you mean people heard them too much or people thought the music wasn't as good as it reviewed? So you're not saying underrated, you say what did they play too much?
I think the song was just saturated so much on the radio and played everywhere and probably played at proms and high school dances that people were sick of them. And actually, one of these songs I love still to this day, so I don't care if it's overplayed. You want me to tell you?
I want to take some guesses here.
All right, go ahead.
All of these songs I actually like, but in my head, I'm thinking about what was playing all the time in the 80s. I feel like Celebration by Kool and the Gang was like everywhere all the time. I still hear it a lot now. I would say maybe that would be
not a top 3 song.
Good. Oh, bastards.
I love that song. By the way.
It's so good. Possibly, I think, is it Culture Club? The Karma Chameleon? The song by, is it Culture Club?
No, but I do remember that song being played so much. I was never a Culture Club fan per se. That song was played a lot. Number 3 was Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears.
Tears for Fears. Oh, my God, yeah.
Which I love that song. That was
What a
my
good
banner
song,
song in high school. Number 2, Every Breath You Take by The Police.
But the Police, yeah, that is.
And the number 1 most overplayed song of the 80s was Take On Me from Aha.
Aha. And The Last of Us 2 made that song take off again.
It did. Did you like that series?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah. Really good. It's
Love that song. I still listen to that song.
You do?
Absolutely. I love that song. I have songs probably as far back as the 50s.
Now, being that you were a child of the 90s, Crystal,
Yep.
Nickelodeon must have been a big thing in your household, right?
Yeah, Nickelodeon was huge. I don't feel like I kind of caught the earlier end of Nickelodeon.
Now, in the 80s, the big show on Nickelodeon was You Can't Do That on Television.
Yes.
But my favorite show, well, before I give you my favorite show, do you know what the significance of You Can't Do That on Television and the future of Nickelodeon is?
No.
Wow, I don't even know that.
The green slime was introduced on You Can't Do That on Television.
Before Mark, what's his name?
Before
Summers?
Mark Summers did Double Dare.
Really?
The green slime, if you said something, I think the catchword was, I don't know. And if that happened, you got green slime.
I do remember that.
On the show. So that
knew
show
that.
established Nickelodeon for the green slime. That's where it came from. But my favorite show on Nickelodeon was a show called Hey Dude. Do you remember that?
Yes.
About the Dude
Sure
Ranch?
do.
Hey, dude?
You don't remember Hey Dude?
No.
Hey
I
Dude.
liked that show.
Hey Dude was there was 2 shows that was similar on Nickelodeon at the time. There was Hey Dude and Salute Your Shorts. It was about kids. Well, the first Hey Dude took place on a dude ranch in I believe it was Tucson, Arizona, and it was just these mischief adventures of these kids at the dude ranch. But the claim to fame was the girl who played Melody on Hey Dude. Christine Taylor went on to play Marcia Brady in the Brady Bunch movies, and she is now married to Ben Stiller.
Stop it.
Right. And they actually host a show now, a podcast. The girl from Hey Dude, Christine Taylor, and the other kid, David Lasher, who played Ted on the show. It's called Hey Dude, the 90s Called. And they do it's an all 90s podcast, and it's everywhere. But yeah, I used to watch Hey Dude. Don't ask. I was already graduated from high school, and I was in between careers at the time, so I watched a lot of television.
Nice.
And
Now,
all fairness, Christine Taylor, I had a crush on her, so that was the reason why I watched.
That's okay.
still gorgeous.
Oh, she's an age a day.
I forgot that they did like the Brady Bunch movies.
Right.
Because it was Marlene McCormick was Marsha Brady in the show. Mm-hmm. I forgot about the movies. Yeah, she was a perfect Marsha.
She was.
Oh, yeah, I always thought she was hot.
Well, you weren't wrong.
Those were like peak Nickelodeon days. They had some like teenage weekend, like, oh my God, Keenan and Kel show that got them really popular, and Amanda Bynes before she went crazy.
Oh, that poor girl. She's
Yeah.
Now you guys were talking about Star Wars earlier, and CJ and I are big fans of the actress Daisy Ridley. And after the first Star Wars movie, she was in The Force Awakens. She was on social media, and then the people were just shitting on her constantly because, oh, you're a Mary Jane and you ruined the movie. And she went off social media up until earlier this year. In my opinion, that girl made those movies.
Absolutely. She was the star.
Love her character.
She was fantastic.
Love Rey. Now, what the hell is a Mary Jane, a Sue, what?
I don't know what it is because when I grew up, Mary Jane was marijuana.
Yes, or the little candies.
Okay, yep. So I have no idea what that means. I honestly don't know what Mary Jane means, but it's, in the Twitter world, I guess it means something.
Right.
I wonder if it means, I've heard this argument with like other female like lead characters. I think I've heard people refer to Aloy from Horizon in the same way. I'm wondering if it means like a character is too like balanced.
Well,
They're good at something and there's no explanation or reason for why they're good at it.
Elaborate a little bit. I mean, you're a woman. How would you feel? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Crystal?
My thoughts on what thing exactly?
What you just said.
Well, I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, everybody's different. Some people just naturally have, like, literally that's what the Force is. It's a midichlorian rate. You're just blessed with it genetically. You don't have to explain it. It's genetics. Like, why are some people tall? LeBron James so tall? Genetics. It's just, I don't know. It's just a weird argument for me. Like, oh, you're good at something.
See, I love strong female characters, and I know TC does too. Especially Rey. Yes.
Well, I loved Rey. Absolutely loved her character. I love that she was just this unassuming. It's like she didn't even know what gifts she had until she was put into a position where she was forced to use it, and I think that's really special development. I loved her character.
Right, and I think the problem is a lot of newcomers to Star Wars. And, I mean, if you look at it, sure, Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford were huge stars in the original trilogy, but so was Carrie Fisher.
Okay, I have to admit, my entire, growing up, always Carrie Fisher.
Absolutely.
Always. Carrie Fisher and Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks.
Oh my God, Stevie Nicks. Yes. Stevie Nicks and Carrie Fisher.
Fleetwood Mac fan, huh?
I love Stevie Nicks.
Now, what made you a fan of Carrie Fisher? Was it her acting or was it her personality? What made you a fan?
I love the way that she. I loved her acting. I loved her as character. I just loved Leia, and there's such a stereotype for women characters, and we're definitely, we're breaking molds, right? We're content is being more diverse now than ever. Even back in those days, we didn't see as much diversity, and she wasn't like this damsel in distress. She ended up being a strong woman that could take care of herself. A lot of content has, made these women this. This what I never liked about Disney growing up is I'm like, why does every princess need a prince to save her?
Right. And that's exactly what George Lucas said when he wrote Star Wars. He wanted a princess in that film, and he didn't want her to be wearing a skirt. He wanted a strong female lead.
She was like a badass princess. She ended up being a freaking Jedi. Like, she was just so awesome. And then outside of the character, you know, she struggled with alcoholism, but the way that she approached it, always felt was very mature. She was very vulnerable. She talked about it a lot. She was actually funny as hell. Like, the real Carrie Fisher's hilarious. Did comedy tours and stuff. But I respect somebody that's really vulnerable about, you know, their issues, and they don't try to hide. And like, we see that all the time on social media. Like, people don't have perfect lives. They're just showing you the good shit.
Right.
She wasn't afraid to be like, hey, this is my bad shit. And
right.
It's not healthy for you. And, you know, it's okay to struggle because I'm struggling too. Like, we need that.
Right. I would have loved to have met her. I think TC has met her. Got her autograph.
I did. In 1995, she did a book signing in New York City. I took the Greyhound bus down and waited in line for a couple hours. And she was exactly the way you just described her, Crystal. She was a funny person.
She's very funny. I don't know if a lot of people know that.
So once again, Crystal, can you give us all the information of how we can find you on social media?
If you do the thing, the artist formerly known as a Bluebird, they're calling that app X these days. On the X or the Instagram, my handle, tag, username, whatever it's called, the thing that comes after the at, is C Smith Shine. So, like, you know, the letter C for Crystal. I had to make that up in like 2 minutes because I went to this conference years ago I was speaking at, and they're like, oh, you have to have a Twitter to enter for whatever marketing reason. I'm like,
right.
Oh, crap.
Are you going to stay on Twitter, so Crystal?
Yeah, I don't imagine I'd shut it down or deactivate, because there's still a lot of good people there, but I'm definitely not happy with how it performs with all the changes.
Tons.
It's okay.
Tons.
So many weird changes.
There are, but you know something? The video gaming community, the movie community, the pop culture community have a lot of great people in them.
Amazing.
And one of those good people is C. Smith Shine. Right here, Crystal. Absolutely. Listen, Crystal Smith was our guest tonight on the Retro Rundown. I'm CJ. We'll be back right after this.
What's going on, everybody? It's the VG Mobster here, and you were listening to the Retro Rundown with CJ.
Do you love seafood? Hi, I'm Captain Dave Marciano, and I want to invite you to check out our new website, AngelicaSeafoods.com. Now you can get fresh local seafood shipped overnight from Gloucester's fishing families to yours. AngelicaSeafoods.com, the finest, freshest seafood New England has to offer.
From the boat to your door, get Angelica Seafood's premium seafood, sustainably caught and packaged at AngelicaSeafoods.com.
Hey, this is CJ, and we're back on the Retro Rundown. I want to take another moment to thank our very special guest, the awesome Crystal Smith, who was a pleasure to talk to tonight in the studio. And let everybody know, a reminder, you can check us out on social media at retro_rundown. You can find our guest, Crystal Smith, at C. Smith Shine on social media. Thanks for coming on, Crystal. I want to thank TC for having me in the booth. And we'll see you next time on The Rundown.